Hello, everyone, no matter where you guys are. Good evening, good morning, good afternoon to all of you participating in this webinar. I am Fabio, the speaker for this webinar today, and today we'll be talking about the user management and application you can apply in Ragic. So, for example, you know that you need a lot of users to have your company collaborate in your database if your organization consists of quite a few number of employees. Now, to have them successfully collaborate with you in your database, you need to manage your users wisely. That includes providing them with the correct settings, access rights, and many related other things. And this is what this webinar will be talking about. And I'm just going to wait for another few minutes to allow more users to join. And if you have any questions, feel free to comment in the comments, the live chat comment section, which should be located on the right of your screen if you're using a computer browser to view this webinar, or if you're using a phone app, it should be located on the bottom of the screen. And I will be building a prototype if possible, or I'll just simply answer orally in the live stream. Also, on the other hand, if you guys have some technical issues with viewing this webinar, such as if the sound isn't correct, or you think that the screen is not clear enough, or it's a bit laggy at times, please tell me, and I'll see if I can make changes to it. Alright, guess it's a good time to kick off with this webinar. And of course, I'll be talking about user management and application, but if you guys have other questions regarding the content of this webinar, or simply about Ragic in general, feel free to tell me during the stream, and I'll see if I could answer them during the stream or towards the end, where I will provide a short Q&A session. So first of all, what is a user? What's the definition of a user in Ragic? Well, basically, a user is defined in Ragic as a person or a user account that will be able to view, edit, and create their own records and data. And of course, they'll be able to view other people's data if they have the access rights. That's basically what a user is, and of course, they will be managed by the sysadmin, which is basically like the ultimate designer or the administrator of the database. And so the number of users is related to the pricing of Ragic. If you haven't know about this, the pricing of Ragic is the plan you've selected, for example, the professional plan or the light plan, multiplied by the number of users in your database, and that will become the monthly price. So for example, if you purchase the professional plan of Ragic, which is $19 per month per user, and you bought it for 5 users, it will be 19 multiplied by 5, which gets you $95 per month for subscribing to Ragic, and we do provide some discounts. So, for example, if you pay yearly by credit card, you get a month off discount. And on the other hand, if you have more than a certain amount of users, so for the professional plan, if your database consists of 20 users or more, and you'll be available for I think it's a 15% discount, and the discount rate will go higher if you reach another level of the number of users. So we do welcome more and more users in your own database, which could be a bit cost efficient in some ways, but of course, if you are using the database just for yourself or just for a small group, that's also perfectly fine. Ragic is flexible, and you can just do any changes you like. So now the first things first, how are you going to do with adding new users? So you just created your own database account. How are you going to add new users to your own database? So this is my database. I'm going to go to Start, Account Setup, or you can go for a shortcut, and then you can go to Manage Users as right here. However, I personally like to go from the Start and Account Setup, because I feel like the process allows you to go through the database setting process, which is what I personally prefer, but both ways are cool to be fair. And here's the page. There's a user page, which is the first tab here, user. You can create unlimited amount of user during your free trial. I'm using the free trial right now, so I can create a limited amount of users. But if you subscribe for a certain amount, like you probably bought like 10 users, you can't add 10 internal users, and the system will restrict you on that. So if you need to add a new user, you can click on New, and then you'll go to this entry page where you can enter the information of your users. So for example, I need to add a new user. Let's say Fabio@email.com. This is, of course, the fake email. Do you mean no? I'm just going to add full name, Fabio P-E-O. Make sure that the email for new users and the display name for new users do not have duplicated values from the previous user records, because the system will not be able to recognize which user it is regarding the full name. As you may have known that when you're using the select user field, they show the display name. Therefore, you cannot have two of the names that are identically the same. And regarding the emails, well, they cannot be the same because Ragic defines every user with their own emails. So so it's just like think of it as a username. Like if you want to create 2 username accounts for a certain game, the game will allow you, because it cannot define which username it is, which person it is. That's the thing. So after these 2 other fields are mandatory entered, and employee number, you can enter the other information of this employee, such employee. I'm just going to say employee number 1, 2, 3, title, senior advisor, company, Ragic, marketing 2, and you can also select a direct supervisor or deputy. And this is mainly for the approval status, the approval workflows. And you don't have to. It's not mandatory to be selected here, but it'll be handy if you would need to use approval workflows related to direct supervisors or deputies in the future. I'll show you why these 2 fields could come into play when I demonstrate approval workflows later on in this webinar. And also contact information and signature. Regarding the signature field, you can set you can simply upload a signature file, or you can simply just have a mouse pad, draw sort of like a sign with your mouse, clicking on it, and then sort of like trying to sign it. It's hard for me to sign on the trackpad right here, so I mean, I'm just going to show you how it works. I'm clearing this right now. It looks pretty ugly. And one thing here is called the system information. Generally, when you add new users, they should be all default. They should all be set as normal. That's why the system has set as at normal. However, if you do not want this user to be using the database, you can change his or her status from normal to suspended. If you suspend the user, that means that he or she will not be able to access the database, and he or she will not be counted towards your subscriptions. So if you have subscribed for like 10 users, but you want to add an 11th user, you can select a user to be suspended. So now you have 10 active users, and that is doable in Ragic too. I'm just going to leave this page right now to see, and you can see my previous user entry additions. So that's a fabio@ragic.com. It also has a system log showing when is updated. And also here, there's the Ragic groups here. Now this is also an important part when you're adding new users. What Ragic group does is that it will be made for you to define which on different sheets what access rights this user has credentials to. And in Ragic, the access rights are determined by user groups instead of a individual user. So right here, Pam Fabio Quo, this is my own account. I'm in the sysadmin group, and I'm in the normal user group. This means that I will have access, if I'm just in the user group, I will have access to all the sheets that has opened the access rights for users. But since I'm the sysadmin, which has I personally call it like the ultimate guide of your own database, because a sysadmin will control your whole database. Only the sysadmin can access the account setup. Only the sysadmin can create new sheets. Only the sysadmin can change the design of your sheets. They basically gain control over your whole database. That's the thing. However, regarding other user groups, that's the access that they can be able to access sheets, but with limited access rights with their limits. And I'll talk about access rights later on in this webinar when I go through the sheet designs. So yes, this is basically what the user page looks like. And if you need certain actions done to a specific user, there are 6 actions down right here. You can reset his or her password. Entry owner transfer. We can transfer if he's an entry owner of certain entries or on certain sheets, you can transfer the entry owner to somebody else. Change this email, resend invitations, suspend or send custom email. It comes really handy for you when you need to do actions to specific users. I think as a sysadmin, I think the most used action would probably be reset password, because sometimes your users may forget their passwords, unfortunately. So if your user says that he or she has forgot her password, all you need to do is just reset her password, and then it will be set to the default password, which he or she can then change the password again in the future. Furthermore, regarding this user page, it's just like any other form page where there's a change design here. Yes, that means that you can change the design of this sheet. However, when I click on this, when I click right now, we lock the system these fields, like all the fields that are defaultly designed for this sheet. It's now locked that you can't really change anything right here. However, you can add fields if necessary. So if you would like to add like a subtable for family information down here, let's say emergency contact one. So let's see, contact name, phone number, email, address. Let me just merge these cells. Yes, I can add new subtable fields right here, just like adding new fields on new normal Ragic sheets. However, please do not move, please do not change the system fields anyhow. This includes the user sheet and the group sheet, which I'll be talking about, the group management sheet, which I'll be talking about later. And I can't think about, and the company settings sheet. That's also, you can't change that as well. I'm not going to use the subtable right here, but you can, if you need it, you can add new fields on the sheet if you would like. These can come in handy when you're using the user page to manage more internal data of your organization's employees. So it could come in handy at times, depending on what your workflow wants to be, or how you would like your employees to view your data. We'll just exit for now, and let's go to another sheet called the groups sheet. So as I just mentioned, that groups are used for defining which access rights you have on which sheets. Of course, you can add a lot of settings on groups. Here are the list of groups. Some of them are default groups, and most of them are created by default by Ragic. And I've created two groups here. It's called a webinar group and content group. Of course, if I want to create a new group for more detailed access rights, such as I simply just want a sheet to allow myself, who is in the marketing team, to have access to a certain sheet. Now, what do I want to do? Click on new group name. I'm just going to call this group Fabio. And right now, you can add a group administrator to administrate he or she will be able to manage the users under this group. So I'm just going to say Fabio quote is also the group administrator. Group tabs and group tags, you can also add them and stuff. But I'm just going to add a group description just for Fabio's access rights. And right here, I've added a new group right here, and that's where you manage your groups. Your group's information, and then after adding a new group, you can go back to the users page and find myself and add myself to the new group. Yeah, Fabio. Now, yes, that means that if you want only a certain person able to have access to a certain sheet, or if you want to find access rights by every individual. Now, what you have to do is, instead of allowing each individual, instead of selecting from a list of users, what you have to do is you have to create a new group, and you have to add that individual into that group. So that's just what I've done to add myself in the Fabio group. And that's basically for the users and the group settings. And right now, let's go to the sheet settings, since the sheet is where you'll be applying the users, because there's access rights, there's assign users, or you can allow users to, or not allow, invite users to review a certain entry when you provide them with access rights. And of course, access rights you can make it very comprehensive. That's the power of Ragic. Let's start right now. I'm going to the sheets I've previously designed called the registration form. This is the registration form I've just designed. I'm going to change design right here. Now, first of all, first things first, where do you decide which users can access this sheet, which users cannot? Please go to form settings right here. And the first thing you see in form settings is at the access rights tab. Of course, there are all the other tabs that are very helpful, but I'm not going to be talking about that too much today since it's not that much related to user settings. Now, first of all, right here it shows all the access rights by groups on this sheet. By default, every new sheet, if you do not change the settings, the user group, which is the default user group when you add a new user, will be set as a bulletin user. However, if you would like to restrict the access rights, so for example, you only want I'm just going to use the Fabio group again. If you only want myself to view this sheet, the first thing I have to do is make this, instead of making a bulletin user where you can this user group can create and edit their own entries plus view all entries, which means entries created by other people, all of them, and you make it into no rights, meaning that they cannot see this sheet whatsoever. And now nobody has access rights except the sysadmin, because as I've mentioned previously, the sysadmin is basically the ultimate guy of your database. Now, the next thing, if you want to allow this Fabio group to have access to this sheet, you can click on this and change the access rights. So there are different levels of access rights. I've talked about bulletin user, which basically allows a user to see everything on the sheet, but they can only edit and create their own records and edit on their own records. There's survey users, which means you can create and edit their own entries, but you cannot see all the entries like the bulletin user. Viewer, on the other hand, is you can see all entries, but that's all you can do because you can't edit or create new entries. So basically, if you would like to do it in more of a mathematical knowledge, what I'd like to say is bulletin user is basically survey user plus viewer, because it contains both access rights. Admin, on the other hand, is very powerful, but it can be a bit less powerful than the sysadmin, because if you're the admin of the sheet, you'll be able to view all entries, and you'll be able to edit them, and of course you'll be able to create new entries as well. I'm going to set my Fabio group as a bulletin user, and after selecting an access right level, which is probably a better word, you can select to have this user to not able to edit or not able to create, or you can enable both or not. It depends on what you would like to do, and what you've selected will be applied on the rules. And of course, you can set it for different groups as well. Content group, I want them to be only the viewer. Webinar group, I want them to be the admin. And each user group can have different access rights depending on what you would like to do. However, make sure that this one will be a bit special. The first one, everyone, it really means everyone. So if you allow everyone, I'm just gonna say, if everyone has viewer rights, you'll be able to, even you as probably like you watching this webinar, you'll be able to access this sheet if I allow everyone access. This simply means everyone on the web, or in other words, this means that this sheet is sort of made as public. So this is very important right here, and that's the access rights for a single sheet. And right down here, if you'd like to add more user groups, like right now you feel like, oh, I need to add another certain individual, or not another certain individual, but you can like to add another user group, you can add them right here. I'm gonna say quo, and there's another user group right here, and you can assign them the access rights first, and then go back to the user sheet to assign users into that user group. And then so it saves you the process of creating on the sheet. If you want to allow certain users but they're not in the user group yet, you can create a user group right here instead of going back to the group sheet, but you still have to go back to the user sheet and assign them in the new group. So now this is basically a simple registration form. So you probably would want the members to have access, or basically the top part right here, the member registration form, because you want new members, you probably want them to have public access to it. But right here, down here, the payments, you're thinking a bit complicated because you do not want them to everyone to have access rights to it. So as I've written here, finance team internal use only, but they're on the same sheet. How am I going to allow all users to view the top part, but only the finance team or accounting team right here to only be able to only the finance team to be able to view the bottom part? But they're on the same sheet. Now, as you can see right here, access rights for individual fields, multiple versions. I'm going to create a multiple version right here. Go to form tools, multiple versions. Use same data source on new sheet. That means that your new sheet will be sharing the same data pool as this sheet. So two sheets will be synced, but the layout in multiple versions, the layout can be different, the access rights can be different, and the fields can be different too. It's just that the data is it's in sync. So I'm going to duplicate this sheet. Registration form for accounting. Always allow pop up. Let's do it. Let me save this design right now. Alright, now I have a new sheet called registration form for accounting. For some reason it blocked my pop-up, but you should automatically be guided to the registration form for accounting page after you've created a multiple version. Right now it's basically the same sheet because I've just duplicated it. However, I can change the design. Like member registration form, I can change the background color to blue. Move the fields, move them up. Oops. I can move the fields. I can add new fields, of course, and I can have different settings on the field. So, for example, if I want the members registration form, all the information to be processed on the original members registration form sheet, I don't want anybody to deal with the data here. All I have to do is set it as read only for all the fields right here. However, when it's set as read only, the settings will not be changed on my original sheet, and users will be able to add data on their own sheet. This is read only. And as mentioned just now, I've mentioned that what if the original sheet you do not want to show these fields, but you want these fields to be processed on this new accounting sheet? I can go back to the registration form. Let me save this design right now. Always remember to save your design where you leave your sheets. This is really important because if you do not save your design on your sheets, basically you'll probably have to restart your design process again. So let's go back here, registration form. Well, there's two ways to do it. They're pretty straightforward. One is simply delete the fields. The other way is just simply hide the fields. Depending on what you need to do, I Personally, in multiple versions, I tend to like hiding the fields if they do not affect the basically the form page span too much, because and when it's hidden, it's just not viewable. But at least if you somehow need the data there, if you somehow need the data to be referenced in some way. So, for example, if a field needs to be, probably need a field to reference the dates or any subtable fields, or of course it could be an independent field as well. The workflow will still be processable, but if you delete the field, then the workflow cannot be worked. So I personally like hiding fields rather than actually deleting them completely. However, if you accidentally deleted a field, so for example, if I accidentally deleted let's say this approved field. Oh, this is an important. Oh yes. Okay. This is an important field for another reason. I'll tell you why later. Let's say I'm gonna delete the date field. Multiple versions, and then you can basically you can still add them back from clicking on the multiple versions you've created, and then you can add the fields back in. And you can decide where you want to put it. I want to still put in the first part, insert subtable. Whoops. And your subtable will be inserted back. However, it will take the settings from the sheet that you have added the field from. So if I want to hide this field, I need to do it again. Move the subtable back to 812. And that's sort of how this, if you want to differentiate on different sheets. So if you want to differentiate different viewing for different groups and different access rights for different groups, those has to be done on different multiple version sheets. And as I mentioned, the data is in sync. So I'm just going to show you how the data will be in sync. I'm going to create a new registration record here. New. This one's auto-generate. I obtained this from the place here, the user formula, to get today's date. This date, you guys, this is the date right now where I'm in Taiwan. So it could be March 23rd for some of you guys, I guess, but it's 24th right now since I'm located in Taiwan. Name, Fabio Guo. Date of birth. I'm just going to enter my real date of birth. 1995. Whoops. 27. And I use the formula to obtain my age. Email fabio@ragic.com. Phone 12345. Address. Taiwan, save. So now I've saved a member registration form right here, and I can pick someone from another, like probably a supervisor can assign. Like for example, I'm going to assign Oscar Alvarez. Now, first things first, I've talked, what does the assign user field do? This is now assign user field is basically, instead of having the entry creator, the record creator will be the entry owner, of course, but if somebody else is also assigned, he or she will also be the entry owner of this entry. So how do you see who's the entry owner? Click on the I down here, and yes, the entry manager is fabio@ragic.com. I think I forgot to change the so to assign a user correctly, so select user field. If you want to make it into an assigned user field, you need to set selected user as entry manager. I forgot to take it last time, my bad. And you can also invite user to view this record, and you can also enable the multiple select option. I'm just gonna create a reviewer field for easier viewing. A select user. Where's the select user? Yes, it's here. This one will be called invite user to review this record, which is basically the reviewer field of Ragic. And I'm gonna save it. Would I like to add them? Yeah, sure, why not? Sure, why not? And reapply. Reapply basically will be reassigning with the assign user field. And let's see down here. Entry manager. Now there's two entry managers. Right now, Fabio@ragic.com is myself. This entry manager will be defined with the user account's emails. And the first one created by Fabio@ragic.com, so I'm also automatically the entry manager. And fcacu, this random my personal other email account is Oscar Alvarez. This is basically the record I've assigned to. And you can add reviewers as well. So people who have access rights to this sheet and you've added them as reviewer, you will be notifying them and they will be notified via email to review this entry, and they'll also be shown the content of this entry in their email. And also, I'm just want to show you real quick. Other than one thing I need to remind you guys is that you cannot directly change the field types of reviewers and select user fields. If you would like to sort of like modify the sheet by simply changing the fields, you will have to delete it and re-add them again, because assign user fields has something to do with the system, and directly changing the field type will cause some trouble. So we suggest deleting the field and creating a new field if needed. So as you can see, these fields are locked. So I'm just going to show you guys the other things. Select user, you can also select group. So assign group. Right down here, select group. It works the same as the select user. You can set select group as entry manager. The same application, and right here you'll be selecting the group who will be the entry manager. So for this sheet, I'm going to add another sheet. Why not? So right here you'll be selecting the group. So the Fabio group again. Save. As you can see right here, the entry manager. There's another one called @Fabio, which means the user group Fabio. And finally, just to remind you guys, all the select user fields or the select group fields, you can enable multiple select for them. And that comes in handy when you need a lot of users to be in charge of a specific entry, such as a specific client, a specific product order, a specific inventory product management, and much more. Depending on what your workflow is, there are various aspects and various ways. And I'm going back to the registration form, which is which is the multiple versions that I've just created. Now I've entered data right here, but I can't do anything with the subtable. Now, this is for the accounting team to do. I'm going to change to the accounting sheet. As you can see, these fields are automatically populated. Right now, I'm going to change this to accounting first. So basically, what it does is, when somebody enters a registration form, the record will be automatically populated on this accounting sheet, and then after that's done, I can enter the data in the subtable. So date, random date, plan A, payment amount 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, valid until a certain date, method credit card, remarks, no, and I'll talk about the approve field later. And right here, 29, plan C, 3, 4, 4, 4, valid until the end of here. Cache. You just save 2 subtable records, so the finance can be able to process these records. And let me check something real quick. Payment amount. I should make this into a monetary field. As you can see that when I'm creating new sheets, I tend to go back to the design mode times because Ragic is flexible. I feel that something needs to be changed, I just change it instantly. That's the power of the sysadmin in Ragic. Change it to a money field to add the money sign and make it to the formatting I like. Save, exit. So with different access rights settings and different sheet settings with multiple versions, users can you can select which users can view which fields, which style of sheets, which types of data, and they can all be done comprehensively in terms of other sheets. And just right here, if I would only want the accounting team to view this sheet, all I have to do is give them admin rights or give them bulletin user rights if they're not. Basically, they'll have to be assigned to the entries to view and edit the data down here in the subtable. Now, one key thing about managing users or applying users is using it with approval. As you see, I have an approve field right here. This is not related. This is done on another sheet. I personally set it up right there. So this is a sheet created from the subtable. So the 2 subtable records are all here. They are all right here. So I want I want the approvals to be done here. So how do you set up approval fields in your Ragic database? Well, first of all, go to change design. Down here, you see a person with a tick right here. Hover to it. Basically the box will bounce out. Configure approval flow for this form. Click on it, and you can add an approval step. Step 1. Let's say payment check, and you can select, and there are different, you can select certain users, certain user groups. So I can select the accounting group, or this is the part where I was talking about the supervisor, the direct supervisor, supervisor or previous approver. So if you will be using these organizational statuses, you need to select who's your supervisor. I'm just for an easier demonstration, I'm just gonna use myself for now so I can directly approve it. Payment check, add another approval step, plan check. As you can see, there's the gear icon here. That means with the respective step, you can have more settings. That's what the gear icon does. It basically provides more settings to the step or to the function closest to the gear icon. Click on it. You can delete this step if you do not need that many steps or this step is useless. Set rules or add approvers in this step. So you can set rules right here. You can add new rules, meaning that I would say it will be similar to conditional formatting. So if a plan is plan A, then you need to execute this approval step, and you can add more rules. add more rules if needed, and I'm just going to delete this right here. Plan check. There's also another gear icon, the same thing, and I can also add approvers in this step, meaning that if I add another one, let's say Oscar Alvarez, this means that both Payment Fabio Quo, myself, and Oscar Alvarez have to approve to complete this payment check step. And once you've added more users, you can set a threshold for add more users in an approval step. Let me rephrase it correctly. You can set threshold for approval. So for example, if I have two users to approve in this step, but I only want approval signature, I can set a threshold for approval and set it as 1, meaning that only either me or Oscar approve this sheet and basically approve this record, then the approval step can be proceeded to the next step. And of course, if you have 3 users, you can set it as 1 or 2. 10 users, you can set it as like any number from 1 to 10, similar to that, etc. Of course, there's more advanced settings to approvals if you would like to make it more, I wouldn't say difficult, but more comprehensive. I guess that's the better word. Strict identity verification. So basically ensure that you have to set this. It basically makes it more strict for your identification if needed. And you can allow to reject approval, means that the approver can select to reject this approval. There's basically an icon to say, I reject to approve this, and the approval process will have to start all over again. Lock record when approval starts, so during the approval, nobody can edit the entry. And this is defaultly selected because it's more, I'd say it's pretty logical to lock the record when there's an approval in the process. And start approval after saving a new record basically automatically starts an approval process when a record is saved. Need digital signature. So remember, like when I was using the user management, you can add a signature. And I was like drawing random stuff right there. Yes, that's the digital signature part. It will come in handy if you have like a digital signing pad, or maybe a lot of our users, they simply just sign directly on their phones on their Ragic apps. And if you do not know that yet, yes, we do have Ragic apps which both support it on iOS and Android, and they're pretty handy if you're in a location that you do not have access to a computer. I mean, at least you'll be able to view records, create new records, and approve records on your phones. And only notify the approval starter when the approval is completed. So it's basically a notification area. And you can also notify certain users when approval is completed, such as maybe notifying a certain team, a certain director, or a certain supervisor. You can select groups and single users right here. So that's basically the general information about approval settings. And I'm just going to show you how the approval settings will work, and by doing one myself. Save, exit. All right, plan check. Start approval. As you can see, the icon, I only have the approve icon. I do not have the reject icon because I do not allow the reject. And as the entry owner, you can also cancel the approval, which restarts the approval process again. So start approval. And so if right here, did you see something really special right here? There's a approved field. This automatically made by in process. This is a special field, and I'll show you something special about it later. Click approve, reason, you can enter a reason or not. I'm just going to OK. And when it's approved, this one will be changed into approved. And it will reflect on the subtables right here. Remember the subtable field that doesn't allow me to delete. And now it shows that it's approved right here. Now, what's so special about this field? Why is this field changing it by itself in regards to the approval status? Well, let me just click here. This is a sort of like a special function. So as you can see, like these field IDs, they're all in 7 digits, starting with 1. That means it's a normal field. However, the approved field is different. It has a field ID 312. Now, how is that done? Well, you have to manually create a new field. So I'm going to say approved field. Yeah, what did it let me type? Approved or not. So I've created a new field and save this first. It will automatically produce an automatically generated field ID, but you can click on the field ID area and it says yes, beta feature, use at your own risk. But if you want to make it into an approval field to show approval status, you change the field ID to 312. Oh, it's already existed because I've already created it here. So it doesn't allow me to create 2 approval fields, but all you need to do is just to change the field ID number to 312. Then you'll have the field that shows the approval status. But you can only have one of them. It doesn't allow you to create multiple of them. And now with this field here, it will basically show as approved, not started, in process, or rejected. This field is a bit different if you would like to use a formula to reference it, because if you want to, for example, you want the conditional if formula with the condition to find records that are approved, not started, in process, or rejected. It's not like referencing a normal text field where your reference condition is just these 4 texts. It's actually the bottom 4 values, F, N, P, REJ. So in that order, F is approved, N is not started, P is in process, REJ is rejected. You have to, in your formulas, you have to reference those values, but automatically they won't display them like on your field values. But if you're using it as a more towards like a backhand formula situation, you're referencing by these values. So I'm gonna basically just exit without saving. So if it's approved, then yes, it will automatically show as approved. And yes, it will reflect on the subtables right here, because the subtables are also in sync. And if basically all these 3 sheets are in sync, but since they're different sheets, they can all have different access rights. You can decide which users can view which sheets, what type, think about what type of data they should be able to see, or they need to see. That's how access rights works, since it's done for every user and for every user group. So I would say that the access rights setting is very easy in Ragic, and you can make it very comprehensive, and your data will be much safer if you're in a large organization, and well, your data will be broken into groups of sheets, and those groups of sheets will have different access rights. And finally, I guess some people will be curious about external users, so account setup. There's an external users icon right here. Basically, first of all, to have access to external users page, you need to set there's this form you have to fill out, and Ragic will approve the use of external users. So external users are basically users who you would like them to access your database, but they are not exactly part of your organization. So for example, if you are let's say if you're like a department chain store organization, you probably want your vendors, suppliers to have access to your database and modify some of their data. but they're not members of your organization, so you do not need to provide them with too much access of your database. Now, with that said, you can add them as external users. External users, they are unlimited and free, but make sure that they are not users in your database. We will determine this by the email domains of your, first of all, you need to provide us with your organization email, and they must be emails. They must have like the email accounts that do not contain the domain of your organization. That's how we determine external users. And on the other hand, external users they have limited access rights. So for example, let's go to my sheets right here. Form, the user, and X user is external user default group. Instead of having 5 no rights server user, viewer, bulletin user, and admin, external users can only be no rights server users and viewers. The reason behind that is because they are external users and they should not have too much access rights. However, they come in really handy if you have a lot of partners or people that work with you who's not in the organization, and you probably want them to access your database as well. And so those come in handy, and you just add them there. Or if they if they even have a request, let me go back. They can approve request. So if somebody files a request, submits a database access request to your as an external user to your database, they will all be populated right here. But of course, there's not yet. Finally, last but not least, if you need to add external user groups instead of just simply have one external user group, you can just add them in groups, and make sure that you need an X dash in front of them. That makes them an external user group. So it's probably like X sales, X vendors, etc. That will make that as an external user group, and you can also add external users to that group. And I guess that's about it for today's webinar. Do you guys have any questions? If you guys do have any questions, feel free to ask right now, and I'll be in the screen for a little while for any of your questions about today's webinar, about basically user management and applications. And also, if you would like to, you can also ask anything about Ragic in general, and I'll see if I could provide you with the answer to it. Also, if you guys have a more in-depth question, such as you need an example from your own database, such as an issue has happened to your own database and you provide an example for it, feel free to click on the Need Help button in the top right corner of your database and submit a support ticket. And our Ragic support will be happy to assist you with all your issues. No matter what type of issue it is, it's also submitting a support ticket is probably I personally think it's the best option for us to handle your issues, because we do have access to your database afterward, and we can have a better understanding of what you're going through or what you're facing. Thanks, Mr. Francisco Galdamez. Thanks for the compliment, and if you have any questions, just feel free to submit a support ticket. And and we'll be happy to assist you. Sorry for this. Sorry for the pause. For some reason, my Siri executed. If you guys have missed this webinar or basically joined just now, although it's towards the end of the webinar time, feel free to review this webinar after this. The replay of this webinar will be on YouTube, and of course all our previous webinars and basically all of our tutorial videos. Yes. Let's say I have 50 users in 1 year. I calculate. They consume more than 25 gigs of space. Are you talking regarding the 25 gigabytes of space? Are you talking about the database file upload storage space? Because in terms of the storage space, it's calculated by the plan selected multiplied by the number of internal users in your database. Let me get that out real quick. So I'm assuming that you'll be on a professional plan, and with the professional plan, with each user in your database will be able to upload 30 gigabytes. And that means if you have 2 users, your total database upload storage will be 60. If you think that your storage space is not enough and you do not have enough users, the best way is to just simply purchase and subscribe to another user. So let's say they will take up 25 gigs of space. I assume you probably only have 1 user account. Now, what you need to do is just make another user subscription to the same database that you're using. It's not. I guess for should I only pay for a new professional account? I would say yes and yes if it's just adding a new user to your professional plan database, but please do not create a new professional database for it, because then those 2 databases will not be related. Also, if you guys have any ideas of what you would like to know more, like me to talk about or know more about in the future webinars, feel free to tell me right now, or send us an email if you guys would like to, and I'll provide you. I'll consider your suggestions and see if I could do in the future webinars. I'll be here for another few minutes, and if you guys have any questions, feel free to shoot me any questions in the comment section, in the live chat comments, and I'll provide you with the answer if possible. And if your question would be a bit complicated or require some testing from our support staff, you can still ask me right now, but I would guide you to simply submitting a support ticket so we can have a better understanding and have more time to test your issues. Alright, guess it's about time to conclude the webinar right now. It's about 10:38 in my time zone. And just for information, I'm located in Taiwan and it's 10:38 a.m. right here. And thanks for all you guys participating in this webinar, and we'll see you next time.